The Learning Systems Institute presents the FSU Distinguished Scholar Video Series in Instructional Systems. This series is dedicated to Dr. Robert M. Gagne, Professor Emeritus, the Florida State University.
Hello, I'm Bob Morgan, Director Emeritus of the Learning Systems Institute, which is the organization which has sponsored the production and development of the series of tapes, of which you now have one. This group of 56 tapes was developed in order to capture some of the history and to look at some of the future of instructional development in this country. I hope you enjoy these tapes and find them useful.
This program is the first in a series of 2 tapes discussing advice to grad students. This topic is discussed by these leading instructional systems faculty: Dr. Robert Branson, Dr. Walter Dick, Dr. Marcy Driscoll, Dr. Don Ely, Dr. Roger Kaufman, Dr. John Keller, Dr. Robert Morgan, Dr. Robert Reeser, Dr. Jim Russell, Dr. Walt Wager.
I think it's important that you find an area that's of particular interest to you, get a good sense of the questions and issues in that area, and then get down to it and start doing some research in that area. And again, you don't have to start on your own. You can team up with somebody else. Maybe a faculty member wants to team up with you. More often than not, a faculty member is going to be happy to team up with you. Conduct a study, and then get down to trying to write up the results. I think it's all too easy to kind of put off deciding what your area of research interest might be, put off the writing, and when you do that, it often results in you're never completing any research. So the sooner you can get teamed up with a faculty member and agree on an area that you might like to pursue for research, and then actually get in there and get your hands dirty and do the research, and then work at the hard task of writing up the results of the research, the better off you are. And I know in my career, I can remember early on, Vern Gerlach, who was a faculty member at Arizona State, encouraging me to pursue some research in simulations in gaming, and getting my hands wet in that real early on and writing articles related to that. That was a good example of how one should go about doing this. And I'm always enthusiastic about having students come to me and say, hey, I'm interested in this research area, and usually I'm more than willing to work with them. You want to get a program where you have people who can really do a good job of training you, preparing you for whatever type of career you're interested in. So I take a close look at the faculty, their reputations, what students who are in the program think about those faculty. I look at publications in our field, journals like ETR&D, Educational Technology. See who's publishing in those journals. Are the faculty in the program you're interested in joining publishing? Are they active professionals? What do they do? Find out what they're doing outside of academia. Are they having work that they're doing in business and industry, in the public schools? Are they working in the arenas you think you might be interested in? What skills do these faculty members have? Are they mainly interested in the technology or media side of things, or the design side of things? And depending where your interests lie, you might prefer one over the other. What's the breadth of knowledge within the program in terms of across the various faculty? Here at Florida State, we have 11 or 12 faculty who have interest in so many different areas. There's almost any area of instructional design you're interested in, you can find a faculty member who has expertise in that area. So looking at the expertise of the faculty, looking at students' reactions to the faculty in that program, trying to get in an environment where faculty are going to treat you well. The old notion of the faculty as adversaries, people trying to weed out the poor students, that's not a notion that I think you should be interested in buying into a program that has that point of view. You want a faculty that's going to be supportive of you, who can help you attain your goals, faculty members who are going to work closely with you and who don't hold themselves on some kind of pedestal.
The most important thing you can do is to choose the field of engagement. Choose where you're going to engage the system. What do you mean by success? What do you mean by mediocrity? Suppose you want to go and become a professor in a university. procedurally, what I would suggest to you is that as a graduate student, you need to find an area of research that is sufficiently interesting to you and compelling to you that you can devote good conscience time to it and learn enough about it that you can transition yourself from a graduate student through your dissertation and into the first 3 years of your job using basically the same area of knowledge. What you don't want to do is show up at your new job on a tenure track at a new university and haven't a clue as to what program of research you're going to pursue to begin your tenure folder development. And so procedurally what you can do is you can decide, I'm going to work in the area, you know, of design, or I'm going to work in the area of development, or I'm going to work in the area of whatever, and make sure it's an interesting enough and rich enough source of data that you can then begin to make contributions early in your tenure. Because one measure of success in the academic world is the number and quality of publications that you're going to put in the journals and on the bookshelves. So saying to yourself, I don't want to be mediocre, means I have to decide what measure of myself I want to take. And given that you can do that, you can say, this is where I want to be, this is who I want to be, then devoting your energy and focusing on those issues. I believe that for academics in institutions that are principally large, like Florida State and others that are devoted to the development of knowledge, it's very important to manage your time so that you have time for your teaching, you have time for your research, you have time for your reflection, and doing your own work. You must manage your own time. If you do not, somebody else will manage it for you and will not manage it to your advantage. Which means that you may have to learn how to say no to students who drop in unannounced to shoot the bull. You know, I'm not suggesting you shouldn't do that. I'm suggesting it'll waste a lot of your time if you don't have the discipline to make yourself do those things that are going to be directly contributory to your own personal development. And it's a fine line of, you know, how much you have to do for yourself that nobody else can do, and how much you have to do for the institution. If your dream then is to make a major contribution to the field, the thing that you have to do to be able to do that is you have to broaden your scope. That you'll have to go and become conversant with other disciplines. That you'll have to learn more psychology, you know, more computer science, more sociology, more biology, whatever it is, an area in which you want to focus. But you'll need to enrich your knowledge base with knowledge from other areas, because there are smart people in other fields, and we can learn a lot. Many times we can learn a lot more from them than we can from one more person like us, you know, in our own field. So try to avoid spending all your time with people like us. Meet others. Learn about other people. Learn about other systems. And it will greatly enrich your knowledge of, you know, information in the world. And put you in a position to be a synthetic.
One of the first pieces of advice is an outgrowth of my own experience as a graduate student, and that is get to know your fellow graduate students who come from all over the place and bring all kinds of different experiences and different perceptions of the world, and get to know and work with those people on a close personal basis, because you can learn more from your fellow graduate students than you can from the faculty or sitting in classrooms. That was certainly my experience in the years that I spent in graduate school. learning from people like Hal Fletcher and Bob Branson and many more that I could name. And it's one that I pass on to students here. I think most follow that. I'm not talking about just group project work. I mean really getting together in some purposeful bull sessions from time to time. The other is get to know all the faculty. Take advantage of those people. Go in and see them. Impose on them. Make appointments. Go in and question them and press them and get them to react to your ideas. I think that's important. There are a lot of things available here, and some of those are handed out in classes. Many of the things available aren't handed out in classes. They're available through internships or moving yourself around on different kind of research assistantships. A lot of different projects are going on. And most of those will, pay graduate students to be involved in them. I advise my students, don't get too comfortable with one. Then read the field. There's a hell of a lot more to read today than there was 30 years ago. And it's easy to sort of confine yourself to those things that you're required to read in classes. And yet there's a wealth of literature that's available outside, some of which is kind of old now, but it's still worthwhile. I think everybody ought to read Gagne's book. I've forgotten the title of it, on his 50 years in research, where he goes from basic learning research to some model development and theoretical advances, and finally applications kind of research to the learning process. It's a fairly tedious reading, at least the early parts of it are, but you'd be changed by that. That would add to your apperceptive mass in remarkable ways. Those are the things I would advise students. And, we're not talking about rocket science. This program's not all that hard to get through. And a student has, with a little organization of time, can have a fair amount of discretionary time.
This program is the first in a series of 2 tapes discussing advice to grad students.